Okay. Okay, well, Bill's here in spirit, but I think a lot of you already know him well enough. This is a day for synchronicity. My name's Robb Tilley, and who else should be here today but Dr. Robb Tilley.
Which of us is the doppelganger?
You're the younger one, so it must be you. Okay, we're going to need some synchronicity today to try and work this. We've got Sam's working all the buttons here, and I'm going to take the prompts. So I'm just going to speak briefly. No. Let the video play. Here we go. Okay.
Okay. Now, this is such an incredibly complicated case, and we've got a lot more work still to do on it. But these are just little bits of the story, very small parts of the story. Now, being a scientist, I'm interested in obviously physical evidence as well. In this case, we've got a lot of very interesting physical evidence, and this is a barium swallow ultrascan that's been taken in support of the assessment of the causal factors of a troubling throat condition, which was affecting the woman's ability to comfortably breathe and swallow. The onset of the condition coincided with a possible abduction episode. So we've had these looked at by very qualified people, and it doesn't appear to be an artefact of scanning or whatever, but there appears to be something there near the back of the throat. In 2013, she went to see a medical specialist who shocked her when he asked her had she had some strange experiences that might have been associated with the item in her throat. She didn't dare mention the possibility, like you go along to a specialist and they're asking you a very peculiar question that most specialists don't ask, has something strange happened to you? You don't generally come forth and say, yeah, I've had a history of alien abduction experiences. She didn't volunteer that. Anyway, he shocked her when he said that he had seen this sort of thing in people who have had alien abduction experiences. He felt it should be examined more closely in a follow-up scan, and gave her a CT imaging referral. Now, this is one of the most unusual referrals I've come across. The referral says, examination required, CT sinuses plus neck, clinical notes, F/B neck, no HO surgery, nice lady, but history of alien abductions, see barium swallow. You don't get many of those kind of referrals in the medical literature. So we know the doctor involved, and hopefully we're going to be able to have a chat to him and get all that sort of sorted out. Next. Now, in 1995, she had an ultrasound scan after confirming a well-developed unexpected pregnancy, apparently around 3 months' term. The paradox is that she was ending her marriage, and both her former husband and her new partner had vasectomies. The scans confirmed the presence of a fetus. At about 6 months into the pregnancy, the woman had a possible abduction episode wherein she may have lost the fetus. She was on her back on the bed and a partner beside her who would not respond to her attempts to wake him. She felt there was something in the room and there was a peculiar swirling effect. Something was going on at the foot of the bed and her legs were being drawn apart. She recollects little else. Next morning, it seems like her water broke and there was some bleeding and only thin, stringy umbilical cord-like material being expelled. At a hospital checkup, it was confirmed that she was no longer carrying a fetus. It was suggested she had a miscarriage and that there had been a foot-long blood clot mass, which she attributes to being forced to lie down immobile for a long time in the hospital while she was seeking attention. Now, bottom line here, it's very rare that we have a potential situation like this, a complex abduction milieu, UFO and paranormal life narrative, multi-generational, multi-witnessed aspects supported by potentially hard evidence. So that's just a very quick snapshot of an incredibly complicated episode, which hopefully we might write up in the journal.
Yeah, this case is really extraordinary, and it started out, as Bill said, with just an ordinary sort of haunted house job. As Bill said, I've been successfully clearing haunted houses now for at least 25 years, and the AIPR have funded a research project which Lance Storm and I are working on the effectiveness of clearing haunted houses. So I've gone back to people that where I've cleared the haunted house years ago or even weeks ago and have them complete a 10-page questionnaire. How effective was Robb Tilley? And so far we're 66% effective in putting a quick permanent stop to that. So this is a type of research that's never been done anywhere in the world before in parapsychology, so we're hoping it's going to cause quite a bit of interest. A lot of people say, well, what's UFOs got to do with parapsychology? Now, when I first got involved in this some 25 years ago, I remember Keith Basterfield in Adelaide. He's one of the more prominent UFO researchers. Keith said the UFO phenomena is physically real, it's psychic, it's interactive, and it's very strange. And that turned out to be true, because at the time I said to both Bill and to Keith, why do these people get abducted? What's different about them? What doesn't happen to you or me? And so we arranged a study of 17 Australians who'd had abduction experiences with verifiable abduction experiences, multiple witnesses, medical records, physical traces, that kind of thing. And I conducted most of the interviews. We gave them the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory of childhood memories and imaginings, creative imagination scale, the demographic, and then another scale of what they remembered about the abduction and being inside the alien spacecraft. Now, this group of people, the only thing that makes them different from a normal population is they're psychic. They have a lifelong history of psychic experiences. And in the same way, when we look at the near-death experience, which millions of people have had in the last 40 years because of resuscitation technology, of all the millions of people that have gone to hospital, died, been dead for a while and been resuscitated, only 18% of them have the full-blown spiritual out-of-body journey to the light, to transcendent peace that surpasses all understanding. So why does that happen to them? Only 18% of them? It's because they're psychic. And again, in this survey that we're doing at the moment, the effectiveness of clearing haunted houses, one of the questions, what clearly shows is that it's only psychic people that get haunted, that attract poltergeistry. So this seems to be the common thread. So what does parapsychology have to do with UFOs? Everything. It's all about psychic interaction. Okay, this case started out 5 years ago. The woman calls up and I ask her a set routine of questions. How long has the house been haunted? 30 years. And I thought, gee, this is weird, because usually people do something about it pretty early on. So 30 years, and I ask all the usual questions. And we're on the phone for about an hour, and just as I'm thinking she's about to end the conversation, because it's not making sense to me, she says, oh, I haven't told you about the alien abductions, have I? And I thought, there it is. Now I understand. The reason that she didn't do anything about it for 30 years is the shame and embarrassment associated with this, because if you've been abducted by aliens, who's going to believe you? Let alone you're living in a haunted house. So I'll give you an example here of the sort of things that were happening in the house. The seeing of apparitions of her deceased husband. The husband had died 6 days before the birth of their daughter. He died of gunshot wounds. Police said it was suicide. She thinks he was murdered. And then she saw, a few days after, she saw apparitions of her deceased husband. She also reported hearing his voice telling her to wake up, forewarning her of a car accident where the car rolled down an embankment and ended up on its roof. Nobody was hurt. She reported objects being moved or thrown around the house, the opening and closing of doors and drawers, lights switched on and off by themselves, pets shying away from specific areas, the banging on doors and windows, scratching sounds on walls, unexplained footprints, hearing her name called, unpleasant smells. mysterious cold spots, being scratched, cut and bitten and touched, unusual cold spots in the house, sleep paralysis with violent choking, and the very commonly reported sense of being watched. Okay, one of the other strange things that there was a vicious ghost dog in the house. What does she say here? One night she sensed a ghost dog attacking the family dog in the house, and the family dog jumps on the bed with her, wouldn't stay in the lounge room, and the dog was howling in fear. She heard a scratching noise beside her bed, her hand was over the side of the bed, and then her fingers get bitten and the dog hangs on, is biting. It's very painful. She gets very frightened. Later on that evening, the daughter, who's in another room, the daughter senses this dog come into the bedroom. She's very frightened of the dog, and the dog pulls the doona, the covers off the bed. Okay. Then in the daughter's room, there's a big mirror in the room, and the daughter reports seeing entities coming out through the mirror into the room. Lots of frightening faces in the mirror, so the mother decides she's going to move the mirror by herself. And she said that it was unbelievably heavy until she got the mirror through the doorway of the bedroom, and then it resumed its normal weight. Okay, so imagine putting up with that for 30 years and you don't talk to anyone. So what we decided we would do was go out and put a stop to the poltergeistry and haunting first thing. And so I went out there with a young man called Steve Greenall, who'd completed a course that I teach every year at Macquarie Community College on how to clear haunts and poltergeistry, and Steve was really good at this. So the two of us went out there with a psychiatrist, Dr. Lana Lubimov, because she's very interested in alien abductions. So we went out and met the family. This woman lives out on the west side of Sydney. Her parents came up from the south coast, and we got to talk about them, and the father said, oh, this all started about the time of Sputnik, but before Sputnik they were living up on the Scots Head, the north coast. They're out walking on the beach one night, see a green UFO moving erratically. Suddenly they all get frightened and run home. She's 4 years old, she's got an older sister. And that seems to have been the starting point of all the psychic phenomena. And then if you look at spiritual emergence, Stan Groff's 8 categories of what will trigger a spiritual emergence. Close encounter with aliens will do that. Now, she doesn't have much memory of anything that ever happens, except for that when she was about 8, she remembers hiding in bushes, looking up in the sky, very frightened of something. Again, when she's about 12 and 14, so this is a recurring thing, it's just lifelong alien abductions. So what we did there, I understood how all this started, because once you have that spiritual emergence, the whole multiverse rushes in and tries to overwhelm your psyche, and it's a big test for you to choose between good and evil. That's part of the process. So we got to know the family quite well. We moved into the daughter's bedroom, which was the centre of the poltergeistry. We all noticed immediately how cold it is and spine-chillingly unpleasant it is to be in that room. And she slept in this room all of her life. So she's depressed. Dr. Lana Lubimov talks to her about antidepressants and medication. She says, no, I don't want any of that. So then I get the family arranged around the room, and we have a clearing ceremony, which is really simple. We get the good spooks to come in and take care of the bad spooks. And I'm part of the good spook team, and I'm doing all the talking and answering the questions and reassuring people. We have the family one by one go around, and each one of them express their anger and at the bad spooks and tell them it's time to get out of here, we don't want you around anymore. So each one of family members do that. Some very strong language was used for emphasis, which is good because poltergeists and bad spooks are not very intelligent, and you can't be subtle, you need to be quite blunt. So we do that, and about 20 minutes later the energy in the room's changed completely. People feel light, they feel calm and peaceful. The energy's gone up. And because the whole family is psychic, they all sense immediately it's all over. It's finished. After 30 years. And that was 5 years ago, and we've been to see the woman several times, and there's been no more poltergeist or haunting. And she's one of the participants in our survey. So that's 5 years ago. So then she opened up about the X-rays, which we're going to show you in a minute, because she had an implant in her throat. She had trouble swallowing. Had gone to the hospital. They took some X-rays, and you can see the cylindrical thing in her throat. The doctor who did the X-rays didn't make any comments about it, except for, "Have I treated you before? Have I done surgery on you?" And she said, "You know, you haven't." So Dr. Lana Lubimov examined the woman looking for entry points or scars or something like that. Couldn't find anything wrong with her. So.
Now, I was just a bit unclear about the connection about the tree.
The tree.
The tissue sample.
Tree.
But I think if it was mentioned, I must have missed it, but I don't think so. Yeah.
Sorry? Speak into this mic? Yeah. Okay. When she realised that the fetus was missing, she goes to a hospital out west side. They confirm the fetus is missing. The child's maybe 5 months of age. The fetus is 5 months old or so. They give her the placenta, and she takes it home and buries it underneath the tree in the backyard. And the tree used to be very bountiful with oranges, big oranges, and now it isn't. There's not many oranges at all. And Bill took whatever oranges were left. They were small. He's got them frozen because he thinks there might be some DNA information in there. Also, with the placenta buried under the orange tree, there's lots of stem cells there. And so the potential for discovering something is quite good. So he just needs some funding to do a proper sequencing of the DNA. Okay, yep.
Two questions.
Yes.
Who gave the placenta back?
The hospital.
The hospital, okay.
Yeah. She took it home with her.
Right. I didn't quite get the initial connection between the hair, the alien hair, and the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's two different stories.
Okay.
Chalker's research about 10 years ago on Peter Curry case with 2 strands of alien hair. Different case altogether, but had the DNA sequenced on that, and the details are published in Chalker's book, Hair of the Alien. And some very interesting things revealed there, that the hair apparently is a double deletion of the CCR5 gene, which when absent confers immunity to all viruses. That would be a very handy thing to have. What else was that? The closest genetic matches were to cultures around the world. It was the Connaught region of Ireland, the Camargue and Basque in France, Spanish border, group of blue-eyed Chinese up in the Calamacan Desert up north, Aboriginal people, Taiwanese people. And what all these people have in common is they all have a mythology of interbreeding with the sky people. So the DNA kind of confirms the mythology. That's an unusual thing.
I was just unclear about did she know she was having a miscarriage, or did she go in for an ultrasound?
No, she was confirmed at 3 months pregnant, and that was when the ultrasound was taken. And then at about 5 months, this visitation during the night, her legs are spread apart, she's bleeding badly, goes to hospital in the morning, they say your fetus is gone.
So she didn't expel anything, she didn't feel anything, there was nothing there?
No. And it's typical of all the alien abduction experiences, she remembers nothing of it, and she doesn't want to remember anything. I've offered to give her hypnosis, but she's too terrified to.
Because that baby would have been quite big, and it would have been like giving birth.
Yeah. 5-month fetus, yeah, that's right. Yep. Yes?
I was just curious, it's the doctor noticed that he did the scan. Obviously, I've read in quite a few books and just on the net that when people have gone in, a couple of doctors have noticed that they have implants and the doctor's reaction is quite funny. Like, I sort of get the impression that quite a few doctors may see these things and not know what they are, but they don't want to say anything.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to know what your opinion is. Do you think quite a few doctors see this and just choose to ignore it?
Yes. In fact, the words that she used was when she first went with the trouble with swallowing to see her GP, he looks at the x-rays and he asks her, "Have I operated on you?" And she says, "Well, you know you haven't. I've been your patient all my life." And he says no more about it. And then she goes to see a thoracic surgeon, and the thoracic surgeon examines her closely, and he's got the x-rays, and the thoracic surgeon says to her, "Are you an alien abductee?" And she didn't want to talk about it. She says, "No." Well, no, she said, "Yes, I am." She says, "Yes, I am." Then the thoracic surgeon says, "There's quite a few of you walking around."
Because what I find very interesting is just reading, because I've had an interest for a long time, just reading, just people coming across doctors, security personnel, those sort of people who are, I suppose, very educated or maybe specialists in their field, like not only doctors, they seem to have that same reaction with that doctor. They know what it is, they just sort of shut it down. I think it's sort of something that would be very interesting to ask people who have that experience.
Yeah, if you could get them to talk about it, but if you're...
No, to make people aware, to observe those types of people's reactions, because you can tell if someone knows what they're looking at or they're completely befuddled and never seen it. You can tell.
That's right. Yeah. I think what's going on, if you're a medical professional, you don't want to be in the alien abduction business. It's not going to do your career any good at all.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And I think there may be other medicos who talk amongst themselves, but they don't want any attention. They don't want their colleagues to know about it because it could ruin your career.
It seems that alien implants is not necessarily rare. In fact, it might be a little bit common in this sort of area. Has an implant ever been removed and actually studied?
Bill Chalker could answer that much better than I could. But from what I understand from Bill, this thing looks like a cylindrical object, and whether it's been left there accidentally or deliberately, it's just conjecture, we don't know. But, a lot of the other implants that I've read about seem to be more biological material rather than anything artificial.
Actually, my question was exactly like the lady at the front. So was anything done about the implant, or she's just living in the implant?
No, the situation is the woman has a terminally ill son, and she's full-time carer for him, and that comes first in her life. So until that situation's resolved, I've said to her, have you had it taken out? You've been to see the thoracic surgeon? She says, "Oh no, it can wait."
Oh, okay, so nothing's been done.
So that's where we got to. I said to Bill, "This has been going on for 5 years. We should publish this now because we don't know how many more years if we could get hold of that implant, it'd be fantastic."
In fact, the next thing I was going to pass to this lady, because I know she's involved with UFOs, she might be able to tell us something about implants.
Yeah, Wendy, you might know more about implants, yes?
Yes, I do. Dr. Roger Lear in America, who's deceased now, he took about 6 or 8 implants out of people there and examined them. What he noticed was, in some cases, as he went in to extract the implant, it would move out of the way. So they're biological. They're like sort of little tendrils moving around in the body, and they are aware when you're coming in to get them, and they move out of the way. So he wrote, what did he write? Something to do with a scalpel, and his book's worth reading about implants. I want to mention as well, we've had 2 cases of people who've had implants x-rayed, and one of them was like the size of a rice kernel in the shoulder blade. So he showed me evidence that there is an implant there. I had a call the other day from someone who said he has an implant that moves up and down. So sometimes it's more prominent in his arm, other times it retracts back in. He hasn't had it x-rayed, but he was considering having it done just to be able to prove that there's something there.
Yeah, when I had these x-rays at home for a couple of years, I had a good chance to look at them. It looks like a cylindrical thing that's kind of like that, and you can see an edge to it. And so it's something rolled up like that, as best I can tell. So it's purely, it's got to be artificial, an artifact, yes.
Can I just mention something briefly about the missing fetuses?
Yes.
One of the people whom I interviewed said she had her tubes tied and she became pregnant on 2 or 3 occasions, and she said it was absolutely impossible for her to be pregnant, but she was pregnant. And again, the fetus disappeared at about 6 to 8 weeks or to 2 months. And this woman was so agitated about being used as a breeding machine by the aliens that she had a hysterectomy, and she said now they can't do anything to me anymore. So it's not uncommon.
Just a very quick question, and they're associated. The first thing that comes to mind is what is the point, what is the purpose of the implant? And I guess, you talk about people being breeders for aliens with the fetuses. This is, I guess, a hypothetical. What's the purpose for all of this?
Hybrid breeding program. Do you want to answer that?
Well, I've thought about that quite a lot, but we really don't know. You can only speculate that.
Well, there seems to be a hybrid breeding program. They're breeding a whole range of new half human, half aliens. And we've had quite a few contactees report going up onto a craft, meeting their hybrid children. There's someone on the Central Coast who talks publicly about her 3 hybrid children. And she's been on a craft and seen tubes of liquid in which fetuses are floating. And the aliens invite these mothers up onto the craft to bond with their children, because they found that the children developed much more effectively if they had a bit of love and affection and bonding with the mother. So it's a very active program by the aliens to breed another race, half human, half alien.
And the point of the implants, what is that?
Tracking device, monitoring device.
I kind of doubt that if it's a tracking device, because this woman's been abducted repeatedly over 40-something years. They never have any trouble finding her, whether she's got a gadget inside her or not.
No, could they be medically monitoring her health through the tracking?
Maybe if we get the thing out and we can find out what it is and what it's made of. But that's going to be the problem. We can't wait to see we can't see the thoracic surgeon until she consents, and then there's the surgical removal of it, and then who gets that? Is that her property? Can she give it to researchers?
And would she trust to let it go?
Yeah.
Because it can disappear.
Yeah, what if it disappears into the medical archives somewhere and we never get to see it? Yeah, so there's all that kind of thing.
I just want to ask, does anyone know if there's been autopsies of dead abductees?
Autopsies on them? Yeah. I can't answer that one. I don't know. No? Wendy's nodding, shaking her head. No, I don't think so.
I've got a question actually.
Okay.
Is there a particular blood type that the abductees seem to have?
There is talk about the negative blood group being a common denominator. It's not always the case though.
Okay.
It's not always the case. But I know David Jacobs on his ICAR website had a whole section on the negative blood group as being predominant amongst the abductees. But there are other factors. I mean, I'm interested also in the fact that some of them come from military backgrounds enormously, and does that make them make the family genetics are known to the military? Therefore, is that in terms of military abductions, does that make them attractive? And also, they often, as Rob said, they're psychic. There's some of them have an indigenous kind of background or Irish background. I've noticed that with a few of my clients. So there's certain predominant factors, but you cannot say it's always the case. It's just that is prevalent amongst some of them.
So what I'm hearing is that there is possibly a breeding program going on, and that certain people are being selected for this program. I'm going to assume that you're not the only ones aware of it, that in fact this is also the military and the government, everybody's aware of it. I don't hear a lot of this from the government. I'm hearing it from you. So what is this? Is this a sort of a government cover-up?
Classified, highly classified.
Yeah, well, it's not only that, but politically, there's no political gain in being involved in UFOs at all. Nobody's going to take you seriously. Nobody's going to fund it. Politically, it goes absolutely nowhere. But as far as this alien abduction, missing fetus thing goes, it goes back as far all of human history, as far as we can tell. You see the same sort of stories appearing, particularly in Indigenous people. If you read the American Indigenous native woman, what's her name, R.D. Six Killer Clark. She's a emeritus professor at Northwestern University. And she's researched that amongst her own people and people in Central and South America. And it's common knowledge to Indigenous people. It's only white or Western people who think it's strange and new. So it looks like this may have been, the aliens have been manipulating our genetics or human genetics for all of human history. And aliens would have known about this planet long before there were any humans living on it.
I'm not looking at it from a grant perspective. I'm looking at it from a sort of government threat perspective. If there's out there
whatever's going on.
They would be very close.
They wouldn't talk. They're not going to talk about it at all.
Well, the military abductions occur. It's as if they re-abduct the alien abductee. And there have been people who've written books on their experiences with the military after they've had the alien abduction, and the military try and extract the information they learned from the aliens. So they would use drugs to extract the information, and then they sometimes do a trauma-based mind control on the abductee to split them into alters their mind, so they can utilize them for future programs. So there's an enormous secret, highly secret military abduction program going on as well.
Oh yeah, I'm certain that the military and intelligence networks are intensely interested.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, I'm certain of that. Yeah. Question last.
You said negative blood type. Did you mean Rh negative? And is a 5-month-old fetus, was it?
Yes, I think so.
Is that viable, extra urine, under the medical technology we have? So we can rule out, and anyone with a medical background here that might know if a 5-month-old fetus is viable, extra urine, under our medical technology.
Yes,
and if so, it means that we can't rule out human abduction of the fetus. So it's not necessarily an alien abduction of the fetus. Is that right? And sorry, and the blood type, is it Rh negative that you meant?
Yes.
And Joyce will fill you in, but because I'm a bit of a Hollywood movie star buff, and Lana Turner is the favourite actress, and she had the Rh negative as well, and she had a lot of trouble with her first child because there's like a strong immune reaction to the fetus, and she was lucky to have her first child, but all subsequent attempts failed. It's like there's some people that just are different, and they're not compatible with the rest of us. And Lana Turner.
Quick response to that, I'm Rh negative. And so when I had my first baby, I had to have an anti-D injection because both my children are A positive and I'm A negative. And so I was able to have them, but I also had 3 stillbirths. So I think you're right, it's difficult if your partner and you are not the same blood group to have the baby.
I'm the product of an Rh negative mother, and I had to be induced very early in the piece because of the antibodies that my mother was creating. I was the second child. It's triggered with the second child normally. The first child, it's usually okay, but once you have the second child, that's when it triggers that response, that antibody response.
Yeah, but what's interesting with this woman is that her two other children are just fine. They don't have any medical problems.